Hi, and welcome to the e-commerce MVP videocast. In this brief lesson, I'll explain how to start an e-commerce website in under 10 minutes using WooCommerce. Okay, so let's get right into it. The first step you need to take in order to get your website running is to get a domain name, or I should say register a domain name. The domain name is just your website address, www.whatever.com. Now, the ending could be .com, .net, .ca, .me. There are 100 other options, but generally speaking, I recommend getting a .com. Now, it's actually the very first thing you need to get before you sign up for hosting or get a software, and I'll explain why in a little bit later on. Where to buy a domain. There are a number of options you can choose from, but the two most popular ones are probably GoDaddy. No doubt you've seen their commercials or at least heard of them. And there's also Namecheap. Now, you can expect to pay anywhere between $10 and $12 for a domain. Also, here's a tip. If it's the first time you're buying a domain, you can just Google up GoDaddy first time domain or Namecheap $1 domain, and you'll probably find a coupon code where you'll get the domain for just $1 for the first year. Now, how do you select a domain name? Now, if you know the product that you're selling, for example, let's just say it's ping pong balls, you want to have that word ping pong balls in your domain name. You want something that's easy to remember, and it should be short and sweet. Generally speaking, it's recommended to keep your domain name under 20 characters. Now, I'll explain why a little bit later on, but it's basically for SEO purposes, which means that if you have the product keyword in your domain name, it's a lot easier for Google and other search engines to find your website. Now, if you don't have a product in mind yet and you're not sure what you want to sell, or if you're going to be selling various categories of products, then try to come up with a domain name that can represent a brand or have your name. And also just keep in mind, you can always change the domain name later on because, I mean, we're talking 10 to 12 bucks. So, you can always register 4 or 5 and you're not going to break the bank doing so. So I just want to walk you through the process of getting a domain name. And for this example, I'll use GoDaddy. So I'm at GoDaddy.com. And I'm going to look for the domain that I want to buy. Now, for this example, I'll stick with ping pong balls. So I'm going to look for pingpongballs.com. Highly unlikely that this is going to be available, but I'll take a look nonetheless. Now, it is actually available, but it's considered a premium domain at a cost of $42,000, which is a bit of money, and I'm not ready to spend that much. Okay, and now here's the great thing about GoDaddy is that they're going to show me a number of options which are available. So, for example, I can get pingpongballs.org, .info, .chat, and they give me a few other variations as well, pingpongdances.com. Now, as I said earlier, you want the product keyword to be in your domain, and the reason for that is because search engines like Google and Bing, they place a lot of emphasis on your site domain and its title, and if the product name is in the domain, it becomes easier to rank. So it's not necessary, but it is recommended. Now, going back to this example, I don't want a .chat, I don't want the word dances, so I can just refine my search. Now, pingpongballs.golf is available for 70 bucks, and that could be worth it. Pingpongballs.online is also available, and that's only 10 bucks, but I'll just go back and refine it. So let's just say I type in pingpongballs online, and I search again. And as it turns out, this one is available, and it's only $15 per year, and the first year is $2.99, which is actually a standard price for a domain. Now, as I said, if it's the first time you're buying a domain, then you can probably find a coupon code online, and you should be able to get that domain for under 5 bucks for the first year. So I'm going to proceed to checkout. Okay, continue to cart. Now, GoDaddy is going to want to sell you all these other services as well, but to be honest, you don't really need any of these. So I'm going to go ahead and say no thanks and just continue to cart. Okay, so as you can see, my total now is $633.85, so I'm just going to take a minute to remove some of the add-ons. Now, let's just say I get a 1-year domain. And if you're starting out, I would recommend sticking with a 1-year domain just because you're not sure how things will work out, so you might want to change the domain name later on. So no sense in committing long term. These domains are always going to be renewable. No one can take it from you at the end of 1 year. So I got it down to $12.99 and I have everything else turned off. And from here, I'll just proceed to the checkout. Now, I won't actually go through this. I'll let you do that. And so I got the total. If you're a new customer, you just sign up. It's a pretty standard checkout process. And that's it. You're gonna get an email from GoDaddy with your login information. And in the next step, I'll show you how to control your domain name. Or rather, actually, I'll walk you through the hosting process, and then I'll come back to controlling your domain. Now that you have your domain, the next step is to get hosting. A host is where all your files are stored. When you visit a website, you're actually accessing files that are stored on the website's host. So if you look at a picture on a website, that picture is actually stored on a host. When you download something, that file comes from the host. Another way to look at it is an address, a home address, is like your domain. But the home is where you live. It's where all your belongings are. Similarly, for a website, the domain name is just the address, but all the important stuff is actually in the host. Now, picking a host is actually a very critical aspect of running an e-commerce site or running any website. So you want to pick a good, reliable host. Now, there are a number of things you have to look at, or a number of things you have to take into consideration. But the most basic things are you want enough storage, you want good bandwidth, you want customer service, and you're going to want a control panel. Now, storage. Some host providers offer you unlimited storage. Now, I'll explain that in a little bit, but you want something that will allow you to upload enough pictures, install software without bogging down your system. For a new e-commerce site, 5 to 10 gigs is probably enough to get you started. It's not a lot of space, and as your website grows, you're going to need more, but you can always add on later on. To give you an idea of what 5 gigs is, if you download a movie, for example, that's going to be anywhere between 1 to 2 gigs. So put that into perspective, a 5 gig host can probably hold 4 to 5 movies at most. Bandwidth. A bandwidth is just the amount of traffic that your website can handle. It's the upload and download ratio. So the higher the bandwidth, the faster your site and the more traffic it can handle. Service. Service is something that you're going to need. No matter how hard you try or no matter what you do, you're bound to run into some issues with your host. And you're going to want to talk to someone. Now, most hosting providers have a pretty good ticketing system where if something goes wrong, you can log into your host, you can file a ticket, and someone will respond to you pretty quickly. You also want to make sure that they have a live phone number. So before you sign up for any hosting, just give them a call, make sure that you can actually talk to someone at pretty much any time of the day. You're also going to want a chat service. So most hosting providers offer 24/7 chat support as well. And again, this is really important because again, you're probably going to have some issues at some point with your host and you're going to want to be able to resolve it fairly quickly. The last thing, which I'll explain a little bit later on, is a control panel. A control panel is just a means of controlling your host and all the information on it. Now, where do you buy hosting? There are hundreds of providers. One that I use and I recommend is a Small Orange. There's also HostGator, which is pretty popular. Now, before you sign up for any hosting or read any hosting reviews, know that most people who recommend a very specific host are doing so because they get a commission. And full disclaimer, I get a commission from both of these providers and most other hosting providers as well. But you can choose the one that you're most comfortable with. Again, You look for storage, look for bandwidth, try talking to someone that can answer some basic questions. And for basic hosting, you can expect to pay anywhere between $5 and $10 a month. All right, and just like we did with domain names, I want to actually walk you through the process of signing up for a hosting package. So for this example, I'll use a Small Orange. And again, you can use the provider that you're most comfortable with. Just look for the basics, enough space, control panel, bandwidth, and customer service. So I come to the Small Orange website, and I should also mention that in hosting, generally speaking, there are three types of host packages. There's a shared hosting, cloud VPS hosting, and dedicated hosting. Now, dedicated hosting is what you need if you have a really large website that gets a ton of traffic. Cloud VPS hosting, it's kind of in the middle between shared and dedicated. Again, it's something you need when you start generating a lot of traffic. For these services, you can expect to pay over 50 or 60 bucks a month. For a dedicated host, you can expect to pay anywhere between 150 to $200 a month. Now, for a simple e-commerce site, a new website, you want a shared hosting package. Now, no matter which provider you use, it's going to be called a shared hosting. Okay, now, um, in the shared hosting, there are a couple of different options. There are 3 or 4 options actually, and the one that I recommend you use is the small package, which is $5 a month. You get 5 gigabytes of storage, 50 gigabytes of bandwidth. You get unlimited domains. What that means is that you can actually host multiple domains. So you can have a site for let's say you have a personal blog, yourwebsite.com, and then you also have an e-commerce website, which is completely different. You can actually host both these domains on this host, and 5 gigabytes is not a lot of space, but it's enough to get started with at least one domain. You can always upgrade later on. So I'm just going to click on Buy Now, and I'm going to go down to where it says Choose a Domain. Now, a lot of hosting providers, and I think a Small Orange as well, will actually give you your domain name for free when you sign up for their hosting, right? Now, you might be asking yourself, if they will give me my domain for free, why did I pay separately with GoDaddy? And the answer to that is I actually recommend to keep your domain and your host separate. And the reason for that is so that in case you ever switch hosting providers, or for whatever reason there's some issue with your host, you always have full control of your domain. You don't have to worry about transferring it. You don't have to worry about losing it. And for $10 to $12 a year, it's the peace of mind of just keeping these two items separately, and that you always have the convenience of being able to do whatever you want with your domain and not have to worry about your host. So since you already have a domain you signed up with on GoDaddy or any other provider, you click on I already own this domain, and this is where you would enter your domain name. Also, it's going to say, do I want to transfer my domain? And for that, you click no. You don't want to click it, so you leave it unchecked. Basically, they're asking you, do you want us to take over your domain so that you can combine your hosting and your domain as one package? And as I explained, I prefer to leave those two items completely separate, so I'm going to leave this unchecked. And the rest of the process is pretty straightforward, like any other checkout page. You enter your credit card number, your email, all the information, yada, 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 and you proceed to checkout. Also, just like with selecting a domain name, a host provider will try to tack on all these extra services. And when you start, again, you don't need any of these really. So I'm going to uncheck this and proceed to checkout. They also have a spot for a coupon code, and just like with signing up for a domain, you can probably find a coupon code by Googling the company name. So in this case, you would just Google Small Orange discount code, and you can probably find something where you'll save between 5 and 10 bucks. After that, I just confirm that I agree with the terms and conditions, and I place my order. Now, they're going to send you an email, and that's really, really important, so you want to store that in a safe place, and the email should look something like this. Now, every host provider will have a different way of showing you this email, but the information should be roughly the same. There are a few things that you're going to want to note, starting with how to actually log into your hosting system, and very important is your control panel access. Now I'll explain control panel a little bit later on, but essentially it is your home base and it's where you can control all the different things that are in your host, such as installing software. You're also going to want to note your domain name and your username, which you're going to need to get into your control panel. And this is really important. These are the name servers. Now every host has a unique name server. And you're going to want to note that because in the next step I'm going to show you how to connect your domain to your host. And this is one of the few technical things you're going to have to do, but as you'll see, it's really straightforward. So make sure you save this email somewhere safe where you won't accidentally delete it. And again, just note the important things here, the control panel access as well as your name servers. Alright, so now that you have your domain and you have your host, the last step is to simply connect your domain to your host. And I'll show you how to do that. It's really straightforward. It's just a matter of logging into GoDaddy or your domain provider and updating the name servers. Another way to look at this is you're basically taking your address and nailing it to your house. It's really that straightforward. Your domain name needs to know where your host is, and you do that by updating its name servers. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, so to connect your domain to your host, it's actually a very simple process. You just go to your you go to your domain provider, which in our case was GoDaddy. That's what I had used in the example. But if you're using another provider, it would be the same process, same steps. You would log in, and I've already gone ahead and done that, and I would just go to visit my account. I would expand domains, and I'm going to say domains, or I'm going to say manage DNS. All right, and while that loads, if you remember in your welcome email from your host, you got your name servers, which should look something like this: ns1 dot, and then the host name, and ns2. So yours could be like ns10, ns11. Usually it's ns, a number, and then the host name. So if I want to change this, by default, GoDaddy will point your domain to their own host, and they expect you to come in here and simply just update it. So I would just say manage, and I'm going to change this custom. I'm going to say edit name servers. Okay, and I'm going to enter the name server which I received in my email, which, if you remember in the previous slide, was ns something.com. So I would enter those two, and after that I just click OK, and I'm going to click cancel here because I don't want to change it, but it's just to show you, and you would click OK. Now they say it takes anywhere from 12 to 48 hours to update your name servers, but in reality, for most cases, it's usually done in a matter of a few minutes. Just to give you a little bit of a background on what's exactly happening here is your host has files stored on a server, and your domain, when you go to www.facebook.com, for example, or whatever, what's going to happen is the domain needs to know, hey, where do I access these files from? And the name servers rather, tell the domain you need to access the information from this location. So that's all you're doing. You're connecting the domain to your host. And once you've done that, you basically are ready to start building a website. You're ready to start installing the software you want to use and start building a website. But essentially at this point, you have the two most important elements, the domain and the host. The next step is to select the software and install it. And as you'll see, this is actually really simple. It takes just a couple of minutes, and before you know it, you're going to be up and running. All right, now that you have your domain connected to your host, your website, if you type in your URL, should look something like this. And I'm just going to go to my URL where I set up my host, or rather I'll just do this. Okay, and you notice it's pretty blank. Basically the domain is pointing to my host. Now I haven't really done anything with my host yet, so there's nothing to show. So it's going to show a page where basically it has access to a few files that are already installed by default. You might also get a simple landing page. So I think with HostGator, if you haven't done anything with the host yet, basically it's going to show you the HostGator logo, and that just means that your domain is connected to your host, and you actually have to do something, meaning you have to install software or files or something, which we're going to cover right now. So the software that we are going to need is called WooCommerce. WooCommerce is actually a plugin for WordPress. So we need to install WordPress first and then install WooCommerce. Now, if you're not familiar with WordPress, it's actually the world's most popular tool to build websites. It's called a CMS, which is a content management system. Basically, it's a really simple way to create websites, upload pictures, add content. You don't really need to know any coding. Very simple to use, which is why it's so popular. So the way to do that is to go to your control panel. Now, you should have received an email from your host provider which provides access to your control panel. The link should look something like this. Or you can probably also access your website cPanel by just typing in your URL /cPanel. Okay, and once you log into the cPanel, the next step is actually just to install the software, which is really easy to do, and I'll show you how to do just that. So if I go in here, I'm going to type in /cPanel, okay, and I'm taken to the login page, so I'm going to go ahead and log in. Okay, and now I have accessed my dashboard, which controls basically everything on my website. Okay, so you have the file manager here. I can add additional domains if you want to create an email address. So for example, bob@pingpongballs.com. If you want a professional email address, you would do that through here. There are a number of videos and information on the internet you can find. It's really straightforward. You just basically enter the information you want, what email address you want, and it'll do the rest for you. So what we want to do is install WordPress. So I'm going to scroll down to the bottom of the page here, and I see an area called Softaculous Apps Installer. Now, different hosts might call this application something else. Okay, they might call it one-click install or software installer, but most hosts, especially like HostGator, Bluehost, SmallOrange, will have Softaculous. So from here, I can install any software I want. If I want PrestaShop or OpenCart, these are actually e-commerce stores, right? And a lot of sites use these to build their websites and build their e-commerce site. I would just have to click on one of these and follow the instructions and install it. A while back, before there was a cPanel, you would have to do all these installations manually. You would have to set up like a database. You would have to enter in all this information, and it was a cumbersome process. And if you weren't an experienced user, it could be difficult. Fortunately for us, we have a simple one-click install. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Install WordPress. Okay, and I'm taken to the installation page. Now, there's a couple of things I want you to note. The first is the space required. Now, if you recall, I purchased a hosting package that had 5 gigs, and I said that's not a lot, which it's not, but to get started, it is. So, the available space I have on my host, it's telling me, is 3,950 megabytes, which is just under 4 gigabytes. So, meaning I've only used 1 gig out of 5 on my allocated space. And the amount of space I need to install WordPress is only 19.9 megabytes. So it's negligible. It doesn't take up any resources, really. Another reason why WordPress and WooCommerce is so popular, because it's very light in terms of the capacity you need to actually create the sites. Now, I already have WordPress installed on one of my sites using this domain, so I don't want to do anything with this. I don't want to overwrite this. So, and I'll show you what to do next. So you click on Install. Okay, you want to leave this blank HTTP, and here you want to make sure that you selected the right domain. In my case, I want to create WordPress on this site, not on this one, because I don't want to overwrite and lose my existing site. Now, if you only have one domain, you don't have to worry about this, because by default, this will be your only option available. And in the directory, I want to leave this blank. So it's going to create WordPress on my main domain. It's not going to create it in slash whatever I want here. It's going to create it on my main website, which is exactly what I need. Next, I'm going to go to site name. Here, you want to use a site name that corresponds to the products you sell. And the reason for that is because search engines place a lot of emphasis on your site title, and it gives them a hint as to what you are actually selling or what your website is all about. So if you want to sell ping pong balls, for example, you want to use ping pong ball sale, shop for ping pong balls online, or something like that, but you want your product keyword in here. And the same goes for the product description. Use 3 or 4 phrases, 3 or 4 words that describe what it is that you're selling. The rest is pretty straightforward. You don't want to create multi-site because you only have one site you're running. Now, the admin account, I advise you to change this to something unique. WordPress, one of the drawbacks of WordPress is that if you don't take a few basic preventive measures, it is somewhat easy to hack, right? And it's not something you should worry about, but again, just by doing things like changing your username and creating a strong password, you'll be able to protect yourself. There's also a lot of plugins available that'll help prevent any hacks or bugs. So for now, I'm gonna leave this as admin, but for you, you should definitely create something unique. And the password, I'll just call it password123. You also want to enter your email address that you use on a regular basis, and the instructions and all the information will be sent there. For language, I'll leave it at English. I won't really click on anything else. Advanced options, these are like database options, which you don't want to play around with, especially if you're a novice. And a theme. Now, by default, if I don't select one of these themes, I'll have a bare bones website with nothing on it. So I'll just go ahead and pick a very basic theme. I'll just click this one. If you want to see how it looks, it's something like this. So basically, WordPress is already going to install this theme for you. So you'll have a functioning website. But again, in the next topic, I'll cover how to buy themes and make your website look really unique and stand out from the competition. So I'll go ahead and say, yeah, you know what, go ahead and install this one for me, but I'll probably change it later on. Here you can email the instructions to yourself, or if you have like a web developer or someone you work with that's technical who's helping you, you can send the instructions there as well. If not, just leave it blank. So I'm going to go ahead and click. Now, just a reminder, I'm going to show you on this website, again, I have nothing here because I haven't installed any software on my host. So let's go ahead and install, and this will probably take a minute or so, and it's going to walk you through the process of installation. Believe it or not, once you're done this step, you're going to have a functioning website. And there you have it. The installation is done. Now, if I go to my site, this is my URL, you'll notice that I have a functioning website. Right? And again, because I haven't really played around with the settings, which I'll show you how to do in the next section of this video, it's a basic website, but it could look like this if you just play around with the pages and add content. Okay? So let's go ahead and do that. Now, this is the front end of your website. To access the back end, and if you recall in the previous part of this video, I showed you how I updated the price of one of my products, and that I did through the back end. So to access the back end, the information is right here. You want to store this somewhere. And again, it's your site.com/wpadmin. However, you're going to want to change this as well because it becomes easier for hackers to access your site. At this stage, it's nothing to worry about. Let's just get the website up and running, and we can install plugins and change all these things later on. So I'm going to return to my blog here, and I'm just going to type in wp-admin. Okay, and I'm taken to the default admin page. So I left my username and password by using the default information. You should have created something stronger. And now I will have logged into my backend. And there you have it. Now, what can I do from here? Well, for starters, you can just create a page. To do that, I would just click on Add Page. All right, and I'm going to call this my test page. This is my first test page. And I'm going to click on Publish. And just like that, in under 30 seconds, you have created a page. If I click on this, I'm going to be taken to my test page. You notice that's my title, that's my information. And if I want to edit this page, I would just click here on Edit. It's really that simple. Now, up to now, we have installed WordPress. We have a basic theme. What we need to do next is install WooCommerce. WooCommerce, again, is a plugin for WordPress, which adds the e-commerce functionality. I know this video has gone on a bit long, but in reality, when you do this, all of this should have taken less than a few minutes. So hopefully we can meet our target of setting up an e-commerce site in under 10 minutes. All right, so let's go ahead and install WooCommerce. I'm going to go to Dashboard. Now, WooCommerce, as I said, is a plugin for WordPress. A plugin is basically like an app on your cell phone. So if you have an iPhone or an Android phone, it comes with the basic features and you can install apps. So if you want Facebook, for example, you would install the Facebook app. Similarly, that's how it works with the CMSs. If you want added functionality, for example, if you want to make an e-commerce website, then you're going to need WooCommerce. So I'm going to go in here and click on Plugins, and this is where you install all your apps, and I'm going to say Add New. Okay, now you can find thousands of plugins for WordPress, contact forms if you want security features, and there are a few basic plugins that you're definitely going to want to install, and I'll create a list for that in the show notes. But the one we're looking for right now is WooCommerce. WooCommerce is what makes e-commerce possible on a WordPress site. So I'm just going to go ahead and install that, click on Install. That is actually one of the reasons why I like WordPress, because we have so many plugins that are available for free. Now, other platforms like Shopify, Magento, OpenCart, PrestaShop, these guys all have plugins as well, and a lot of them are free, but for the premium ones, you're going to have to pay a price anywhere from a few dollars to $100. With WooCommerce, there are paid plugins, but they have a really large library of free plugins as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Activate Plugin. All right. So the next step is WooCommerce is basically going to take care of all the installation for me, okay? And it needs to create special pages and do a few technical things, which we don't really need to worry about. So I'm going to click on Let's Go. And it's going to go ahead, it's telling me that it's going to create all these pages for me, the shop page, the cart, the checkout, and my account. So for example, if you have a customer and he wants to see his previous orders, he would log into the My Account page, which will have all the information. Or when he clicks on Add to Cart, it goes to a cart page where he can update, if he wants other additional features, or he wants, he gets all the information about shipping. So let's go ahead and do that. So again, really, really simple, straightforward. It's going to ask you for a little bit more information. Go ahead and enter this as well. I'm going to say Washington. I want US dollars. You can add any currency you want. Another great feature about WordPress. My basic units, I'll leave it at pounds and inches. And all these things can be changed later on. I also encourage you to take the time and watch a few videos on YouTube or read blogs, and just to get familiar with how easy it is to run WooCommerce. Everything is easy. You just need to practice, really. I'm not going to worry too much about all this stuff right now, the shipping and taxes. So I'll go ahead and say just continue for now. Okay. And I'm almost done here. Now, payments. That's obviously a big part of running an e-commerce site. You can get a plugin that will enable you to accept credit cards, for example, Stripe, and that really is a separate topic. For now, I'm going to assume that you have a PayPal address, so you can go ahead and enter the information here. And what will happen is when you create a page and the customer clicks on Add to Cart, he's going to be taken to paypal.com to provide payment information, and that money will be deposited into your account. Not the ideal solution for an e-commerce site. You want to make sure that you do accept credit cards on your website, but that's a separate topic. To get started, if you have a PayPal account or just create one, it's free. Enter your PayPal address so at least you can get familiar with how to get paid on e-commerce sites. And I'm going to not worry about these. I'm going to go ahead and continue. Okay, and basically I'm done, and it's really that simple. Now I'll go back to my dashboard here. Okay, and I'm going to click on Pages, and you'll notice that all the pages I need for my website have been created, all the e-commerce pages. Now I can create additional pages by just going Add New here and create a page called like About Us or anything you want really, and that again, that is something that I won't really cover in this video. That's pretty straightforward and you can find tons of information online for that. I just want to get you started on creating a basic e-commerce site. So we have all the information here, and let's go ahead and create our first product. I'm going to say add product, and I'm going to say my first product. And I can enter some basic content here. This is my first test product. Okay, and I'm going to come down here, and you notice that I can enter all the information. If I have a product SKU, which is optional, I'll just say 001, regular price $9.99. Okay, and I'm going to put it on sale right away. Inventory, if I have, do I want to manage the stock? So if I say that I have 10 of these items and someone buys it, if I click on this, it's automatically going to reduce the stock to let me and the customer know that, how many we have left. Okay, shipping. I haven't created any shipping classes yet, so we'll leave this blank. Shipping is something that you'll probably have to read about, or I'll create a separate video for that. So for that, we'll leave it blank. If I want to link the product to another one, right now I don't have any other products, so I can't do that. But let's just say, again, I'm selling ping pong balls and I have ping pong rackets, then I would link my ping pong balls to the rackets so that when the customer arrives on the page to buy a ping pong ball, he's also shown a section where it says, buy related products, so he can buy both things. Attributes, I'm not going to enter anything into it just yet. Again, this is just a very basic overview of how it works. And I just want to create a short product description. So I'll say this is a ping pong ball for sale. It's a test product. Okay. Now, I can add product images from this section right here. It's called product image and product gallery. So the main image, the one that's going to show up on the home page, is going to be the set product image, and then all the additional ones basically will show up in the gallery. So I'm going to show you how to do that. On set product image, and I'm going to pick a file. Now, one piece of advice I'll give you is that anytime you upload images to your website, you want to make sure that they are optimized and as small as possible. You want product images to be at least 1,000 pixels by 1,000 pixels wide. And if you go to my resource section in my blog, you'll find a number of websites that will, you upload an image and it'll shrink it for you. So that's just something that you want to keep in mind, because you don't want to waste space on images really, because they do take up a lot. I'm just going to look for ping pong balls. I did save one here. Okay, so I'm going to say, oh, sorry, it's on my desktop. So this is my main image, so I'm going to click on ping pong balls. Also, really important for search engines is that you want to give your title, you want to make sure that your title corresponds to the image. So in this case, it's ping pong balls, which is fine. And you also want to you want to enter an alt text. Alt text is basically describes to Google and other search engines what the image is. And I'll explain why this is important in my video on SEO. But to give you a quick overview, basically Google and other search engines are, I guess you can say, visually impaired, so they need a little bit of help and they need some guidance to see what to know what an image has inside of it. So I'll say image of ping pong ball, and you can add a description here as well, but the alt text and the title are what's really important. So I'm going to say set product image, and there you have it. And I'm also going to add a gallery image, and I'm going to say ping pong balls. Now this time I'm in my desktop. Okay, and I have a secondary image here, and I'm going to upload that. And again, I want to make sure that the title is present along with the alt text. And also, it's also good practice to use unique page titles, picture titles, and alt texts. So multiple ping pong balls, and you could even include your brand in here. So ping pong balls. Okay. Now, if people search for, if they do a Google search for ping pong balls, you want your picture to show up there as well, because that contributes, that could bring traffic to your site. And doing this will help that as well. Okay, so I've gone ahead and created the product. I'm going to say publish. And I'm going to say, just click on preview here. And there you have it. There is your product. Now, by default, it should go to your shop page, but you can change that. And you'll notice that I set the price to $9.99 and I put it on sale for $8.99, the title, the text, and I can add more information. There's also more information down here in the product description, which we entered. You can enable or disable this, it's up to you, but it's always a good idea to have reviews. When you're a new website, it's obviously going to be difficult, so disable it for now. And if I click on add to cart, now I won't be able to do anything here because I didn't really set up my my payment information, but I can still show you how it looks in the cart. And there you have it. So as you can see, you've basically set up a WooCommerce site. And just to walk you through again through the setup, there's a few things you need to do. You go to WooCommerce and you go to settings, and from here you can basically enter all the information that's needed to run an e-commerce site. So click on the product section, it'll ask you how you want things displayed, your units. Do you want to enable ratings? So I'll turn that off. So I don't have any ratings yet, so I'll turn that off. How I want the products to be displayed. Everything can be controlled through this simple to use control panel. And again, you can find a lot of YouTube videos and blogs on how to actually do this and optimize it. If you want to charge taxes, you would do that through here. If you want to change something in the checkout page, you can control that through here. And again, here PayPal, you can control that through right here. And from here, you can enter your PayPal address. You can, enable other payment methods as well. If you want to accept cash, which I don't know why they have this, but you can do that. If you want to accept checks, which again, I don't recommend, you can control the options. All of this is controlled through your WooCommerce panel. Shipping is definitely something that's important, and it is somewhat of a separate topic. So for now, if you're just new to this, I would just enable the flat rate shipping and just say it's free shipping for now, right? Right now it's not even enabled, so I'll just say free shipping for now, and I'll worry about these things a little bit later on. Enable free shipping. You can control, which countries you sell through. So, again, it's important to get familiar with how WooCommerce works. It takes a little bit of practice and patience. Try to watch videos and read blogs, and you'll see once you get familiar with it, like any other CMS platform, it's really simple to use, and you've gotten a quick little lesson right here. Step 5, installing a template. Now, if you recall, during the time I was setting up my WordPress site through my host control panel, I was asked if I wanted to install a template, and I selected yes, and that is how I got the overall look of my current website. Now the question becomes, what do I do if I want a really professional looking website? If you're going to sell something online, you have to look like your site was professionally developed, one that looks like it costs, thousands of dollars to make. Now you have two options. You could spend a couple of $1,000s by hiring a designer and a developer, or you can just buy a template for around 70 bucks and pay someone anywhere between $30 to $40 to basically customize it for you. Now, where do I buy templates? I always use ThemeForest, and I pay anywhere between $50 to $80 a template. With these templates today, especially on ThemeForest, they're made in such a way that you can customize every aspect of the website. If you want to change the color scheme, if you want to move a picture in a different location, if you want to change the size of the font or the text, if you want to, add a slideshow, it's all pretty easy to learn how to do. Now, in this lesson, I'm not going to show you how to do all these things, but there are tons of videos and information on how to customize your WordPress theme. Also, like I mentioned earlier, you can use a site like Upwork.com to hire someone from overseas to basically build your website the way you want it for under a couple $100. Now, before we conclude, I just want to walk you through the process of buying the right template that fits your needs. And to do that, I'll go to themeforest.net. Okay, so I'm at themeforest.net. Now, what I love about ThemeForest is that it's a part of the Envato network. The Envato network is basically, it's a resource site where you can find everything you need to run your website and your online business. For example, if you're looking for a certain plugin or a specific Java code, and don't worry if you don't know what that is, just ignore it, but you can find it on Code Canyon. You can find stock images, stock videos, graphics. For example, if you want to create like a professional looking sales banner, you can find it at Graphic River. So if I were to just click on that, and I'll show you, what I'm talking about. Okay. And you also want to check at the beginning of every month because they do give away one of the files from every service for free. So if I just click on, let's say, graphics, or rather, I'm going to look for web elements, banners, and ads. Right? If you're going to run an ad campaign, you probably want to buy something from here. So like a Valentine's Day banner. Like you see these on the internet, and you think that these things cost a lot of money to develop. Somebody had to hire like a professional for Photoshop artist, but as you can see, I can pay $5, download the file, and if I have Photoshop or other software, I can edit these by just changing the text and not know how to use any software at all. So it's a handy little tool to keep in mind. I'll just go back to ThemeForest here, and our objective is to find a template for WooCommerce. Now, WooCommerce belongs to WordPress, as we talked about, but the themes or the templates in the WordPress category here, these are for traditional websites. Like, so for example, if you have a corporate website, you'd buy a template from the corporate category, or if you're just running a blog, you would buy it from the blog category. What we need is a WooCommerce template, which is in the e-commerce category. And you'll also notice that they have templates for everything from Shopify, Magento, OpenCart, all different types of e-commerce software. So I'm going to look for WooCommerce. Okay, so as you can see, there are 448 WooCommerce templates. Now, I'm not going to go through each of these, so I'm going to try to narrow down my field of search by looking for a specific theme. So if I were to sell, I know you think I'm going to say ping pong balls, but let's say I say we're going to sell furniture. So I'm going to type in furniture, and you'll see themes that have been developed with furniture in mind. That doesn't mean that this is how your site has to look. It just to give you an idea, a visual example always helps. Now you'll find again, now I've narrowed it down to 56 templates. And again, I don't want to go through each of these. What I recommend you do is select like 5 or 6 that really stand out to you by just browsing over these things right here, and you'll see the preview. Pick 5 or 6 that stand out, and then just pick from one of those, because you can spend like days and weeks trying to decide on a template, and chances are you'll never be satisfied, because every time you check ThemeForest, it seems that these templates get better and better with more features. So I'm going to click on this one right here, the furniture template, and I'm going to look for a few basic things. The first is the price, $59, not bad. A lot less than paying $500-600 for a designer, and then another $1,000 to a developer to create a site like this. I don't really need the support. I mean, it's something that you can get, but these things are pretty well supported within the community, and it comes with 6 months support anyways. Also, you can probably hire someone overseas for a reasonable amount. Okay, the other things you want to look for, if I go down here, you want to check the comments. Now, I'm not going to click on it, but what you want to look for here is if people are complaining that there are bugs or whatever. And more importantly, you want to see if the author of the theme is responding in a timely manner. Now, new templates, no matter how well developed, are going to have a few issues. And these authors on ThemeForest do a pretty good job of responding and keeping their themes up to date, but it's an issue nonetheless. Also, you don't want to be the first, you don't want to be like in the first 100 buyers of a theme, just because chances are you are going to have to play the role of guinea pig, meaning that you might discover some bugs and you'll have to file a support ticket, or raise a comment. So I recommend try buying a template that has at least 100 sales. But if one really stands out to you that doesn't, well then by all means go for it. You also want to look for what other features are included in the site. Like, for example, they're showing you here that this site is going to be really easy to edit. If I want to change the color scheme of the website from green to blue or to yellow, it's going to be really easy to do that. I don't have to touch any coding. And most of the templates now on ThemeForest have these types of features where if you want to change the font, you want to change the font color, the size, if you want to upload your logo and all these things, it's really straightforward to do all these things. You also want to check the compatibility. Now, WordPress, I think, is at 2.3 something. I'm not sure. You just want to make sure that you have the right compatibility. Generally speaking, these guys on ThemeForest, they do a really good job of keeping their themes up to date, so it's not something you want to worry about. You also want to make sure that it's compatible with the latest version of WordPress. If it's behind, let's say like WordPress is on 4.4 and this is compatible for 4.3, that's fine also. You just don't want to be too far back because there are some security risks. The most important thing you want to look for is the layout. Now, a responsive layout means that the website you buy, when you install it, it adapts to all devices. So if you view the site on a cell phone, a tablet, a PC, it adapts to the device. And that's really, really important because a lot of your traffic comes from tablets and cell phones. So you want to make sure that the site is fully functional. Also, if your site isn't responsive, Google will penalize you heavily for that. Okay, now aside from that, there are a few other things. You want to look for a template that's well documented, and most of these are, so nothing to really worry about. Also, I now especially will buy templates that come with Visual Composer. Visual Composer is a plugin for WooCommerce, and what it does is it makes it really easy to design certain features on your website. Like if you want to have a certain layout, like a page with, let's say, an image with 2 columns with an icon, instead of having to like code all these things or even have to like, figure out how to do it, it's really straightforward. You just, you drag, let's say you want to add a text box, you would just drag this into your screen and write your text. If you want to add a Facebook like button, you would do the same thing. If you want to create columns, like you want to separate your page in 2 columns, you would click on row and then you would add 2 columns. So really straightforward. You don't need to know any programming. Awesome, awesome feature. Highly recommend that, if you're going to run a website, you should have this. Also, lastly, just remember that, as I mentioned a couple of times now, that you can always hire someone overseas using a site like Upwork.com to help you run the website or help you develop the website. Okay, and I'll just do that. I'll show you how to go to Upwork. So Upwork is, as you see here, Upwork.com. And the way it works is that you can basically sign up for the service and post a job. And what happens is when you post a job, you get people from all over the world that are going to apply for your job. Okay, and you can say something like, I need someone to set up my WooCommerce WordPress website. I purchased a template from ThemeForest. Here's the link to the template. I want my website to look like this, and then I'll need you to make some additional changes. So if I say, upload a new logo, you'll be able to do that. And you can hire people to do this type of stuff. You can hire people in India, the Philippines, pretty much anywhere in the world, and it really shouldn't cost you more than $100 or a couple of $100 at most. All right, well, that wraps up the introduction to e-commerce and how to set up your e-commerce website in about 10 minutes. So just to summarize, the first step is to register a domain, sign up for hosting, install WordPress and WooCommerce, buy a template, and most importantly, just practice and learn. You're not going to get all this stuff overnight. It's not hard. You just have to put in a little bit of work. But once you get the hang of it, you'll see just how easy it is and how anybody can set up an e-commerce website and start an online business. With that being said, we will wrap up the video. If you benefited from the information here, please leave a comment below, negative or positive. I want to hear back from you. And if there's a specific topic you'd like me to cover, please let me know and I will do my best to create a video for that as well. Lastly, please do check us out on Facebook and Twitter. The links are below. Thank you.